I just wanted to chime in on this next Dungeons and Dragons edition installment, whatever you wish to call it. I listened to a podcast with these people from the Penny Arcade, and they were kind of interviewing, discussing with one of the people in charge of the next Dungeons and Dragons. And I just have to say, it sounds like a pretty good game. Way better than this this edition, the newest edition now, 4th edition. They have these, if they can keep it like they're doing it now, they're trying to make the classes individual. They're a little similar, but still it's a lot less similar than it is now, how everybody kind of has these powers, and it's kind of, everyone kind of seems like a wizard. But mostly they discussed was the fighter, because the fighter they mostly have finished. And the fighter gets these, I can't remember what they're called, but they gets extra dice. Like, he can roll to hit, and if he hits, he does his normal damage. But because he's a fighter, he gets these separate dice that get more. Like, you start with, we'll say, a D4. At 2nd level, you get 2d4. At 3rd level, you get 3d4. 4th level, it changes to a d6 or to 2d6 or whatever. But you get these extra dice, and that goes towards your damage, or you can keep those dice, and it can go towards damage resistance. And they're saying this because you're a fighter, you would be able to hurt people more, or you would know how to parry or dodge the attacks. That's a pretty good game mechanic to add for the fighter. And I liked it a lot. It sounded pretty fun to play. But when you're really high level, you'll be rolling 4d12 to, then you can maybe actually take out a D&D monster. As I was saying, the fighter's going to have all this power behind him that maybe he can now take down one of these such high hit point valued things in Dungeons and Dragons in one hit, maybe. Which is the reason I really stopped playing Dungeons and Dragons, because the amount of hit points things had just annoyed me. But besides the point. Another thing they were doing was adding these backgrounds, which is kind of a role-playing aspect, but it gives you pluses to certain skills and whatnot. But it's going to make, at least at the very beginning of the game, it's going to make people think about where their character came from, which in the long run is always a good thing and will probably help with role-playing. I'm looking forward to it. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons and would like them to continue making this game and making it well. And this version sounds way better than, at least to me, than what they've been doing. They needed to make each class more individual, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do. They needed more emphasis on role-playing, and it seems like that's what they're headed towards. Sounds good. Oh, and they're bringing back wizards have to memorize their spells, which I think is good also. Sounds good. Also forgot to mention that the rogue is going to be have the most skills out of every class, and when they're rolling for their skills, the lowest they can get is a 10. So I don't know, that's kind of interesting. I don't know how that's going to turn out. And they're adding instead of having what's that called? Like a DC, like easy, medium, hard, when you're rolling against, they're going to just have advantage and disadvantage, which is when you have the advantage in a situation, you roll your 2d20 and take the higher of the two, and when you have the disadvantage in a situation, you're going to roll 2d20 and take the lowest, which is that's a great mechanic. It's funny, it can be exciting, it's going to really turn the tides in some situation. Well, that's all I can remember now. Maybe I'll come back when I remember more. I just remembered one more thing about the next D&D. The clerics seem to not be much about healing, which I see as a potential problem. But they didn't have much on the cleric. As I said, the fighter was really the main one they had. The rogue was pretty thought out also, but cleric, wizard, paladin, these other ranger, they weren't thought out whatsoever really. And I hope the cleric can heal. That might be a problem.